Okay. Good evening, and welcome to this week's Black Mental Health is Black Health. I'm your host, Bronwyn Lucas, and I'm joined by two wonderful guests who will get to introduce themselves shortly. If you've never watched this before, you won't know this, but we start the night off with some deep cleansing breaths. Why? Taking in deep breaths is going to take more oxygen in your body and your brain and help your body just relax. It'll help you maybe decompress from the day. So let me tell you how we're going to do it. There's so many different ways, and this year I'm changing it up after a few months. So here's what's going to happen. First, let you know, if you might not know if you're deep breathing or not, so lightly place your hands on your stomach. And when I do say breathe, you're going to breathe in so deeply, you're going to feel your stomach expand. That means oxygen is getting past your chest and going through your body. We're going to breathe in to the count of 4. We're going to hold it for a count of 4, and then you're going to slowly breathe out for the count of 4. We'll do this 3 times. So let's get started. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. How was that, ladies? How was that breathing for you? But it's designed to help us all relax a little bit and just, and I like to say to my guests and audience, that's something you can do anytime. Sometimes you might feel a little stressed during the day. Taking 3 to 5 deep breaths can just kind of relax you for a moment and get that more oxygen in your brain, more oxygen going through your body, and allow you just to function a little bit better. Well, tonight's topic, we need to some deep breaths just before we dive into it. We will be talking about human trafficking. And I have some illustrious guests who are with me now, and one more who is going to join us later, and she is actually a survivor of human trafficking. So we're going to get started. We have Dianne, Iglehart, and Tracie, Dr. Tracie Kirkland. So ladies, introduce yourself. So tell us who you are, something really cool about yourself, and why you're into this topic. Dianne, I see that big smile on your face, so we'll let you get started. Tracie, I see that smile too. Awesome.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dianne Iglehart. And something about myself, I'm a retired Houston ISD educator, where I spent decades serving the public, and I did enjoy it. And I guess something interesting about me that a lot of people don't know, I speak Spanish and I play the flute.
Oh,
and
awesome.
some things I'm a little rusty with the Spanish because now that I'm retired, I don't speak it quite as much. I need to practice more. And the flute, I'm a little rusty on that too. And that's something I guess I need to try to pick back up again because it is relaxing. Music does relax you. Dr. Kirkland and I are both members of the Houston chapter of the Links, and we were invited here to share some knowledge that we've gained about the topic that we're going to be discussing tonight with Ms. Lucas. And thank you for inviting us, Ms. Lucas.
Thank you for coming. Dr. Kirkland.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Dr. Kirkland. I am a pediatric and adult nurse practitioner by trade. I've been a nurse practitioner for approximately 26 years and a registered nurse for almost 35 years. I've lived in 7 states, so I've been exposed to a lot of different people and different communities from urban, rural, suburban areas. I have a love for educating the next generation of nurse practitioners and for health promotion and disease prevention, especially in the Black community. What many individuals may not know about me, I am a PK, I am a preacher's kid, and it was my upbringing, my nurturing from my mother and my father that instilled in me the love and desire to help mankind. So greetings, thank you for this space. My personal interest is in social determinants of health. So by default, human trafficking is one of those determinants and the risk factors, which we'll talk about in a little while. And being a member of the Houston, Texas chapter of Links Incorporated, we have adopted this as our umbrella program, and we've been spreading the word and educating individuals over the last 7 years. So thank you for this space. And thank you
for joining us.
Dianne, for inviting me as well.
It is a topic I always like to start off. Some people say, well, you don't always deal with mental health. You're so wrong, because everything we do really can impact our mental health. And as we'll talk to someone shortly who was trafficked, you will see the definite impact it has on our overall mental health. It is undeniable. And so we're going to jump right into it by watching a video. So let me get my shared screen ready, and I'm going to play a video and give you a short video to give you some knowledge about human trafficking.
COVID-19 has devastated lives, the global economy, and educational systems. There's another equally dangerous yet silent consequence of the pandemic: increased human trafficking. Human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery in which traffickers use force, fraud, or coercion to control victims to engage in commercial sex acts or labor services against his, her, or their will. The three most common types of human trafficking are sex trafficking, forced labor, and debt bondage. An estimated 14,500 to 17,500 foreign nationals were trafficked into the United States each year. However, the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent quarantine have led to an escalation of human trafficking. While unprecedented measures like lockdowns, travel restrictions, business closures, and more have been adopted to flatten the infection curve, the mass movement of people and school closings have aided in increasing the risks of human trafficking, especially in the city of Houston, which ranks #1 in the nation in human trafficking. And since the rampant spread of COVID, trafficking has surged. Human trafficking cases for Harris County had already doubled in 2019 and are expected to increase by at least 40% once all 2020 cases have been reported. The fact is, there are 313,000 victims of human trafficking at any given moment in Texas. Most are labor trafficking victims, which is now the fastest growing form due to COVID-19, claiming 234,000 victims on any day, while 79,000 are minors and youth in sex trafficking. Sadly, all for greed. It's reported that traffickers exploit around $600 million from labor victims in Texas, including victims working in landscaping, farming, construction, and even nail salons and spas. So if you or someone you know needs help, call the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888 or text HELP or INFO to 233-733. For resources, visit humantraffickinghouston.org or htratx.org.
Wow, that's got some overwhelming information. And we're going to go into a PowerPoint that shares even more. But I'm disturbed to hear that it's the #1 capital in the U.S. for human trafficking. I currently live in Arlington in the Dallas area, but I'm the database study. Dianne, why in the world is Houston #1?
Well, #1, we are urban setting. We have a border that borders another country. We border other states, and we have major corridors, interstate highways that go through Houston. One in particular, I-10, okay? Because look at I-10, it goes all the way from California to Florida. Now, there can be a lot of activity there. Nefarious things can go on with that. You see the different forms of trafficking, and a lot of that has to do with labor and fraud and debt. So a lot of that has to do with transportation, moving about and migrating, going from one place to another. And so we have increased activity here. We are a large city. We have places where you can hide, do things hidden. And that's why we always say, see something, say something, in different neighborhoods. And we have lots of hotels. Things like hotels and motels that lend that as well, residential areas. So we do stick, and unfortunately, we are number one for the city and for the state. But we are creating more and more awareness. Our city government is involved. You know, the mayor's office, he has a human trafficking department in the office. So city level, we realize that it is important to address it.
Well, I'm glad to hear that the city is addressing it. Like I say, I want my city to be number one, but not in this area. I wanted to pull up some other information and have it to share with our audience and have you guys talk about it. So let me get that ready as well.
And Ms. Lucas, while you're getting that ready, I wanted to emphasize that that's why it's important that we engage our community collaborative partners. It's being addressed at the city level, but our community collaborative partners can see something, say something, and make a difference as well.
Right, and that's what the links will be considered, correct? A community collaborative partner?
Yes, but we partner with the city, we partner with other area neighboring places like the Landing, and which is like a sanctuary for victims to come and to rehabilitate and to learn new skills and to be provided resources. So it's a community affair in terms of partnering and educating and getting the word out. We partner with Metro and we put signage and other things to actually educate our community members. I just wanted to pause and interject that.
No, that is great. Thank you. I mean, I'm going to let you ladies talk about this, but this slide really just shares the numbers again. There are more than 313,000 victims. Wow. Just take a moment to think about that. And we're only talking in one state.
And do you see the number for the young people? The young people, over 79,000.
79,000.
Yeah, they are being lured and targeted. And as you're reading the slide, a lot of the activity starts at schools and school-related activities. So those are some things that the community really does need to be aware of.
And these numbers are just Texas, not country, correct? Ladies?
Yes, they are very up to date, very pertinent, these dates. I mean, these the statistic that you're getting, the data, and it does target Texas and the Houston area, yes.
And that's what's really, when I saw this, that's what's really sad. This is one state. These numbers are staggering for me. 79,000 youth in one state alone are trafficked. This is like, being trafficked during a year. This is amazing. And the last time, predators are using other kids and technology to lure, groom, and solicit our children. This happens during school hours and at school, which is so sad. As a parent, you think you're sending your child to school and they're safe, they're at school. But, we're hearing these terms, luring, grooming. Can you guys elaborate on what does that mean? Because it says predators are using our kids and technology to lure and groom and solicit our children. What are those terms, lure and groom?
Well, lure is when something is enticing you and interests you and really, piques you. And a lot of times the lure is belonging, being accepted, feeling as though you're being loved. and also finance. If you feel as though there's going to be some type of a reward that you're going to be given. So there is a lure. And when you look at something else, the word targeted, a lot of times, all ages, I would say, not, young people in particular, a lot of times there's some separation from their family. They don't have that close family tie. So they're looking for that companionship, that love, that belonging. And they're looking possibly in the wrong places. And that's the lure. And then they're targeted for that because they don't have that family connection. And they may have some other habits where they are around people that have other questionable habits. And then you get caught up in this activity. And a lot of times, things do become financial, and the lure with thinking you're going to make money and so forth, that those are things that can really draw people in. And I've also learned, as we are addressing this in the Houston, Texas chapter of the links, is that a lot of, because there's sense of belonging and being loved and financed, a lot of foster children, when they age out of foster care, I think it's around 18 or 19, and they're not adopted and they're dangling because of that family tie. A lot of times they get lured and targeted into this type of activity.
Anything?
Also, that component of trust.
Mhm.
These individuals develop trust, a trusting relationship with the perpetrator, and as a result, there is mistrust and behaviors that are unacceptable. So it becomes a cyclical process.
And that's where the grooming comes in. The grooming where you are slowly, it's not just, okay, we're going to take you in and you're going to be trafficked. We're going to slowly build that trust. We're going to take care of it. And it is a financial, it is a feeling of safety. And you're slowly, that is what that grooming is. We're slowly bringing you into this. We're being joined, before we move on, we've just been joined by Dr. Nissi Hamilton. After we finish PowerPoint, she's going to come in and she's going to tell us her story. I'm just going to say that for now. Thank you for joining. Dr. Kirkland, I want you to elaborate on some of the things that we see here being laced. These are some methods and ways, the two most common ways I believe that people are trafficked. Can you tell us about these?
Actually, I will defer to Dianne, Miss Iglehart, for that. But before we do, I wanted to just also introduce a new term, and I'm sure Dr. Hamilton will expound upon this, the Stockholm syndrome. We were talking a little bit about trust and the affection and the grooming process. So we look forward to hearing more about that, but I would like to just interject that term.
Would you like to define Stockholm syndrome for them?
Basically, it's the feelings of trust or affection felt in many cases, the kidnapping and hostage of the victims. And again, it's toward the captor. So it's this relational process. And I think I'm pretty sure that Dr. Hamilton will be able to elaborate a little bit more. As we're talking about human trafficking, it's really important that our audience knows become familiar with some of the terms that's actually used within this space.
Yes, for sure. So Dianne, you're going to tell us about the laced tissue method. This is a way that people are taken into traffic. What exactly is it? We see that, but I want you to break it down for us.
Oh, yes. This is like when you're returning to your car and you're in a parking lot or something, and you find some tissue placed on your windshield or in your, you're about to open your door, it's there at the crevice or something, and you grab hold of it. But the tissue is laced with something intoxicating, some type of substance that is going to affect you, affect your alertness, affects your ability to be coherent, and it takes you off guard. So then someone will approach you and so forth, and knowing that you're a little woozy, and begin to engage you in conversation, and that leads to possibly a way to kidnap you because you're off guard. you've gotten a smell, if you smelled or got a whim of that intoxicating substance that is on the tissue. So you have to be mindful of things that are on your windshield. I know a lot of times, people put their push cards on your windshield and so forth. They're advertising something, but we have to be careful now, because sometimes it can be innocent, but it cannot be innocent.
Mm.
And then the other one on the other slide talks about the glass, how a glass or something, a bottle or something is put underneath your tires, 1 or 2 tires, or possibly all of them, so that when you roll over it, backing up or going forward, you hear that crunching sound. And so then as you drive away, you think, oh, possibly, I've damaged my tire, I have a flat tire. So you pull over, and you're already distracted because you're worried about your vehicle. And as you're doing that, someone may approach you pretending to be a good Samaritan, and they're not, and it takes you off guard. So a lot of times these are distractions that make you not aware of your surroundings when people can approach you. And that goes in with those words of targeting, especially if you're driving by yourself. No one is in the car with you. You don't have another family member in there with you. So those are some tactics that are known in the Houston area. So we wanted to share that because Houston's #1. And we know that a lot of people go out. Sometimes you are with a family member, and sometimes you may be running an errand alone. And you need to be mindful always of your surroundings.
And I want to point out, I guess also with this, one of the takeaways is what do you do? So as it says, if you see that on your car, don't just open the door with your hands. If you don't have a tissue or something, get it. Use an end of your shirt. Don't touch what you see in your car. If you don't have anything, remove it. The key is don't touch it. If you drive over a piece of glass, your tires are not going to probably be flat from that one piece of glass. Keep driving. And if they are flat, keep going and go to safety.
Yes.
It sounds logical, but I always like to say, and so what do we do? Don't stop. I can think of once I was driving and this truck next to me kept saying, "There's something wrong with your tire. There's something wrong with your tire." And I just knew something wrong with it. I can stop and fix it for you. Well, I'm driving and the car didn't give an alert. You know how it would say, I had the time the car had would say, one of your something was wrong with your tire. I didn't have the tire alert on. I didn't see it on my windshield, on my driver's seat. So I was like, okay, thank you. I'm gonna keep going. And I was close to a grocery store, pulled into the grocery store parking lot, lots of people, and it was nothing wrong with my tire. So I often wonder, what was he trying to do?
And there's another tactic too with just bumping your bumper.
Mm-hmm.
You're at the light or stop sign and someone taps it enough to make you look out the door or open your door to see what's going on, and then they can grab you or something. Those are things that we have to be mindful of.
Right. Let's look at one more thing. I think, Dr. Kirkland, this is, you're going to talk how is the medical profession being involved with human trafficking now?
Well, thank you for asking. I think maybe it's okay to say approximately 2 years ago in the state of Texas, it has become mandated that health professionals complete training to be able to recognize individuals who are at risk or who are being trafficked. And that the rationale for that is because oftentimes those individuals have been seen by a primary care provider or within a healthcare setting at some point of contact while they've been trafficked. So as a result, they have made it mandated that healthcare professionals have designated training. With regards to some of the signs and symptoms that may clue us as healthcare providers, you may see imprint of individuals' names that are tattooed boldly on body parts. There may be individuals who are repeat, not offenders, but they're repetitively coming in for complaints of like urinary tract infections, sexually transmitted infections. They're having discharge or abdominal pain, bleeding. They may be accompanied by individuals who become the main historians. They're telling the story versus the patient themselves, and or they may refuse to leave the room when the patient is being derobed and or undergoing the examination. So those are some key clues that should make us as healthcare providers raise our eyebrows and to want to learn more and perhaps separate those individuals to be able to do a good history alone, away from the individual who has accompanied them for the visit. Some of the health manifestations, and there is an intersection with mental health, with social determinants of health, and with chronic diseases. But some of the health manifestations that we might see: lack of preventative care. There may be just like a generalized complaint of fatigue and or loss of appetite. And these are just generalized signs and symptoms that can be associated with so many other chronic diseases and or acute diseases. But these are some things that should, again, create pause for us to investigate, to learn more. As an educator, I teach my students that you tell your patients, you're just like an investigator. One question is going to lead to another question in order to ascertain a good history. Headache and vertigo, chest pain and dyspnea, muscle, joint pain, back pain, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation. Some of these are generalized symptoms associated with COVID, flu, and other viral type symptoms. Abdominal pain, again, we mentioned sexually transmitted infections, genital, urinary symptoms, unwanted pregnancies. You may, again, see individuals who are coming in with menstrual cycles that's related to pregnancy. And not to get in the political ramifications of options, but again, there are limited options in certain geographical regions. So you want to keep that in mind as well. There are rashes and sores. They may be acute and or chronic. Use of temporary fixes, homemade remedies that lead to multiple physical and psychological problems. Here tells the intersectionality with mental health. Some of the signs and symptoms are that 63%, or statistics include 63% or more experience 10 or more physical symptoms. 62% may have memory difficulties. 57% may experience PTSD, and 39% have suicidal thoughts within the past 7 days. And that's interesting because of the emerging incidents of suicide, and especially in our young adults post-COVID. So these are just a few items to keep in mind. There are others. It's not comprehensive, but it's just a few just to raise awareness.
Thank you. Disturbing, but it's something we want to know. So I want to pause again and say, so why are we talking about this topic? It is something that is very prevalent. If Houston is #1 in the state, and we saw the numbers for just one city and how dramatic those were. So just looking at that, lets us know there's something we need to do. So I'm bringing it to your awareness, and the awareness needs to be on all of us. Of course, the health care professionals and mental health professionals need to be aware of what's going on, but we all need to be aware. And we're going to talk some more about that, some things you can look out for just in an everyday setting. If you're in the store, some things you might see. Dr. Hamilton.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Awesome. So I had my guests to, in the very beginning, they get to introduce yourself, tell us something cool about yourself, and why are you involved in this topic? And you have a special story to tell. So the floor is yours.
Oh, wow. I rarely get the question, tell me something cool about myself, but something cool about myself is that I used to be a military police officer. So I enjoyed law enforcement very much so, and I'm excited to remain in that realm, even in the capacity that I'm in now as a survivor of human trafficking. and I served my country for 8 years as a United States Navy, and in the United States Navy, and I'm a veteran.
Well, thank you
So,
for your service.
of course, thank you. First of all, to all my powerful Black women that are on here who spoke before me, happy, happy, happy Black History Month. All y'all mean the world to me. I would give my right arm to just sit and listen to the wisdoms that flow out of y'all's mouths, because we don't get that anymore. You know, Big Mama is 35 years old now, and she only got 35 years worth of experience. And I miss having them real big mamas where you could just sit down and glean and get the good information, the stuff that was going to make your marriage last, and show you how to cook good collard greens, and show you what to do when your baby gets sick, you know, and stuff. So I miss that. But yeah, so we're here to talk about human trafficking. You know, I want everybody to take human trafficking serious. If you've gone down my page, I minister about human trafficking. And one of the things I tell people all the time is that, you know, never get tired of talking about human trafficking, because there's one thing that Satan is never going to stop doing, and he's never going to stop coming for your women, your children, or your men. And he doesn't age. And he doesn't have a time limit on when he gets something done. And so, you know, while we're at work and we're spending eight to 10 hours a day at work, those are the times that, you know, are idle for us, like being in the social world. And that is time for the enemy to just, you know, wreak havoc and take stock in some of the things that we consider valuable, like our families, like our homes, like our husbands. I was ministering to a women's group recently, and I said, you know, these men and these phones is something else, right? Because these men, they got so many windows that they can tune in and open to, you know, with the phone. But I want you to always remember something. In the Bible, David fell because he looked at one woman through one window.
Mm.
And now you got these phones and they got multiple windows. And so here it is, we see, you know, we bridge biblical stance and the social nuances that are violating our children, violating our cultures, violating our moral standing and grounds that we have today, mainly because we have lost our moral code and how we view relationships, how we view sex, how we are interpreting those things, and how are we supposed to make relationships last today by these unspoken codes and things like that. So I just want you guys to take that into consideration, because I know we got some people who are always constantly think about how does human trafficking relate to the Bible, and what does Jesus think about human trafficking. And so to know a little bit about me, I was trafficked about 15 years old. I was in foster care, DFPS. Shout out to the Department of Family Protective Services. I always try to shout them out when I can, to tell them thank you. The commissioner did give me a public apology 20 years after I had been trafficked, acknowledging what happened to me, acknowledging that I had been placed, myself and my two children, at the age of 16 years old, in the house with my trafficker. And so I became one of the first cases in the state of Texas who was sued for child support by the men who had been trafficking me. And to be trafficked means to be traded. So in between 15 to 19 years old, I mean, I probably slept with about 1,500 men. And taking consideration, you know, 5 men a day, you know, you're looking at 35 men a week. And then you multiply, you know, those weeks into a month, and then your numbers start to grow, and then your months into years, right? And so, and that's just a guesstimation. There's a lot of money to be made off of somebody who is 14, 15 years old, because our youth is our greatest currency. And at that point, you know, it's bigger than just pimping. We're talking about making a untaxed progressive income by selling people. We're not talking about selling drugs. Drugs you can break down. You can bag up a $5 bag of weed, and you can bag up a $10 bag of weed. But, there's a big difference in having sex with a 14-year-old girl versus a 25-year-old girl. And we're not even talking about endurance and stamina. We're just talking about youth. We're talking about being made to feel young. We're talking about how much money somebody can make off of somebody at 14 years old versus somebody that's 25 years old. I mean, think of the advantage. You sleep with somebody 14 years old, there's a less, you decrease in your ability to get a disease, right? You sleep with somebody that's 25 years old, there's an increase of you being able to get a disease. When people think about how clean the sex may or may not be, 14-year-old, fairly new to intimacy, doesn't really know anything to that man. And we talk about men who are perverted, you guys. I'm just going around talking fast. Men who are perverted, they are thinking, okay, well, she hasn't been with that many people. So, maybe I can be the one to make her wildest dreams come true in the bedroom. That is intimacy for some men, to think, oh, this person hasn't had that many sexual partners. Let me be the one to please them or show them the way life goes or how things are done, things to that nature. So, and I'm talking to you guys like this because I want you to get into the mind of the buyers. We always talk about, the girls being trafficked and women being trafficked, and we know that it happens. I love the examples that you ladies gave a few minutes ago. The only thing is those are setups, right? And those are practices for abduction offenders. When you have men who abduct women and then, want to facilitate the criminal activity of trafficking. Now, all the time, does abduction lead to trafficking, but a lot of times it does. Sometimes it can just be the male and then the victim, and he might not want to traffic her to anybody else but himself. He might not want to share her. He may just want to bring her to an abandoned home and just have her because he wants some company, and he can't take the risk or stand being, turned down from somebody his own age, things like that, to that nature, stuff that we don't think about that psychologically affects the buyers or psychologically affects the abductors who are doing these things. I heard another young lady who was talking, you guys were talking about the Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome is extremely, extremely serious. It happens a lot. If you got a 14-year-old girl that's running away and she's with a guy and you tell her, hey, don't be with that guy, it's bad for you, but she keeps going back to him, she probably is suffering from the Stockholm Syndrome. Why? She's going to defend him. Mm-hmm. Not only she's gonna defend him, she's gonna run the risk. She's gonna take all the risk, and she's gonna manage all the conflict of this entire relationship and the whole ordeal without him even having to receive any type of punishment. She's going to bear that cross for him, and she's going to lay down for him because she thinks it's the most righteous thing to do. And, a lot of times I get the question from moms, why does my 14-year-old want to be with a 25-year-old man? And in discovery of doing this for years, you guys, and it's the reason why I'm an expert, I learned that it's our conversation. Most of our girls who are being raised by moms who might have had them, 19 through 25, right? And then you're raising a 14-year-old. Here's your conversation to your 14-year-old. Baby, this is what a man's supposed to do. This is how a man's supposed to act. And this is how a man is supposed to treat you. Now, you tell your 14-year-old girl or daughter, every day how a man's supposed to address you and things like that. Well, that's just it. That's the reason why she wants a man. You just told her subconsciously how to date a man. So when she go to school and she start dating these boys, and them boys don't measure up to what you just told her a man's supposed to do, she don't want the boy. She want the man because you taught her how to date the man. So that conversation alone is subconsciously building up the excitement for these girls to be with men. And they're ready to run the risk because you told them how to run the risk by telling them what to want, what to look for, and how to look for it, and who to look for it from. So if that boy at school not measuring up to what men do, she is going to go online and substitute the disadvantage of being with a man at school to being with the advantage of being with a man online. And so here's the reason why we understand that 75% of minor sex trafficking happen online. This is why it happens. This is the reason why 1 in 3 runaway youths are approached by somebody who is trafficking within less than 48 hours. Right now in the state of Texas, there are over 3,500 illegal brothels right next to schools. And you wonder why we need no trafficking zones. Now, all of this stuff has been implemented since my time of being trafficked. I'm trafficked in my early 2003. We in 2023. So 20 years later, we're just now dealing with a social epidemia that has been plaguing the African-American community, but we're just now dealing with it today. What we have to really be cautious of is making sure that we got corporate collaboration, that we see corporations communicating with us about their selection, not just in DEI, but their selection in, hey, you know, we want our children to come work with you. We want our children to be able to excel in programs at your job, but you may be in oil and gas. And if you get an executive that's in oil and gas, and when he's at home, the rules in Texas are these rules, but if he goes and travels, and the rules that are in Texas are not the rules for when he travels, so he will make
Game over.
you see where I'm going with this? He will make an exception for his ideologies to maneuver in his perversion. And here it is, we get to a whole nother type of trafficking, and the only reason why we're going here is because there are corporate women on this line. We get into a whole nother line of trafficking, which is corporate pimping, blue collar pimping, corporate pimping. We don't even think about this. We don't think about girls coming from different social classes, you know, trying to get those internships and what it takes. You got to ask yourself, how come high school students aren't in internships anymore? How come they're going to grown women? Because this is the power of the play. And we're not seeing this circuitous cycle of abuse that we're in right now. I mean, you got to understand there was a whole seismic amount of money that was just for 14 and 15-year-olds to work. Okay, y'all remember this 15, 20 years ago. At 14 years old, you could work. You could be employed. You got 14 and 15-year-olds who are no longer able to be employed because we had our military come back from war. We had our veterans who needed jobs. And then we had our disabled and elderly people who needed jobs and resources to supplement that SSI income that they were getting, which drove the 14, 15-year-olds out of the market. But now that they don't have access to jobs, right? What do you think they're going to do? Because they want money. They want money. Right.
It's social media. Want to keep up. They want to look
right, and they want to keep up like an adult would keep up. So you got an iPhone 15, they want an iPhone 15. They want to be able to keep up, and they want to. And at 13, 14, 15, you want to start adulting. That's the time that you think life is supposed to start happening for you. It's just that because we don't have things like the workforce taking up the attention of our children, anymore. Their attention span is say, you know what, forget it. I ain't got to work. Guess what? I'm gonna sell my body. I'm gonna go be a sugar baby. I'm gonna get me a sugar daddy, and he's gonna give me the money to get everything it is that I need. And I can do this with or without your permission. I can do this with in your face or without it being in your face. And so here we get into the other side of human trafficking, where you have an understanding of where the girls come from who say, I want to do this. This is why they want to do this.
I am going to have to ask you to come back and finish, because guess what?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, part two.
So valuable. I told before you got on, I told Tracie and Dianne, yeah, and they were looking at me like, I said, oh, we will. And we have too much to talk about in the time that we're here. I would like you guys to come back, and I've done it this year. My guests have been so prolific, he has so much to say. And I was like, okay, we got to do part two. And because you have more that needs to be said, I don't want to just say, okay, cut it off, it's over. I really would like you guys to come back and do part two.
I will absolutely come back.
Absolutely.
And I want all three of you to be in the, because you all, we have, and I have just a ton of questions. But no, I thank you so much. We are like so over time. So I've been bugged to say, if you go take the show to an hour and not 45 minutes, you'll be better. But right now it's still 45 minutes. So, and we're at 49. But what I want to do is first thank all of you for coming out. It's such an important topic, and you each bringing something different to the table. So this same three, once we get offline here, we're going to talk about this, because there's so much more that I really want.
So much more.
Understand. My goal in the show is, as I say, everything impacts our mental health, and we need to be aware. I want to talk about, how do you, Joe Blow, walking down the street in the grocery store? We're going to talk about what are some things you can do. There are times you see something and you're like, that just doesn't look right. If it just doesn't look right, reach out. But we're out of time, so I want to even go into that, so we can tell people, because I'm getting ready to I get excited about it too. So we end the show every week, but I give you a call to action, something to do related to the topic. So my call to action is this: on your own, go out and study this topic some more. Come back and listen again. But if you see something, say something, do something. If you find yourself being uncomfortable, like, you know what, every day that house over there, it's just something not right. I see a lot of cars coming in. Say something. You'd rather be wrong and offend somebody than to allow this to go on. If you're in a grocery store and there's somebody, sometimes you get a sense in your spirit that something wrong, say something. So if you see something, say something. And I always end with my last call to action is always be an educated voter. Why do I always say that? Every topic we've had, who's in office impacts it. Who's in office can impact human trafficking as well. Dr. Kirkland talked about, the unwanted pregnancies in certain regions, such as Texas. There's nothing you can do about it. So you've been trafficked, and now the power to be saying you're going to have that child. And I'm not saying pro-abortion, anti-abortion. I'm just saying this is a fact. So who's in office impacts this as well. So ladies, we are so over time that I'm just going to say we are going to sign off. I thank you for my listeners. Looks like they've all held on. And we'll see you next week.
Great topic. Until we meet again.
Thank you.
Till we meet again.
Thank you.